How powerful is the bolter from Warhammer 40k? So, kind of a little side note, I filmed this before. It was like 25 minutes unedited, and then I didn't want to edit it because that takes a long time. But I still had it, so that just preyed on my mind because I wanted to get it done, but I wasn't. So it was just sitting there for weeks, and it turns out that my math was wrong on that, so that was just a lot of worry for nothing. But anyway, the bolter is the signature gun of the Space Marines in Warhammer 40k. It fires an explosive, armor-piercing gyrojet round, and it's powerful. If we look at one of the most recent pieces of media released by 40k, the Space Marine 2 trailer, if we look at it at slow speeds, then we can see that one round is pretty much enough to drop these large dog, small bear, kind of humanoid-sized targets, which are Tyranid Hormigons, but whatever. However, only the hits to the center of mass and to the head of the creatures is enough to dispatch them. Some rounds just seem to blow off limbs. And initially this makes me think of what some very heavy pistols can do, like the 4.54 Cthulhu, which just so happens to also be the same round that Alucard's first gun in Hellsing uses. And it can do some pretty impressive stuff to watermelons. What we see in the Space Marine 2 trailer is probably a bit more powerful than that, but I think that that's from the explosive. But I didn't make this video just to examine a trailer and then tell you what I saw there that you can see for yourself. I did some math. And I looked into history. Did you know that we actually made a round that's kind of similar to the bolter? It's called the Gyrojet round, and we made it in the 60s. And a Gyrojet round essentially has fuel inside and exhaust ports that keep pushing out, you know, it's like a rocket, as opposed to just a chemical charge throwing the projectile like normal traditional projectiles. Now, this round was 13mm by about 38, quite large for a modern projectile. However, it wasn't really going too fast, so it didn't really hit too hard. It only hit with about the same power as a 357 Magnum, about 550 foot-pounds of energy. I mean, as far as pistol rounds, 357 Magnum's no joke, but I mean, for something that technologically advanced for the time period, you'd think it would do better. And this gyrojet also was very inaccurate and was overall just a failure. But it existed, and I crunched the numbers to compare that to the bolter. The gyrojet round was, like I said, 13mm by 38. The bolter round is about 19mm by 43 or so, which means that by volume, the bolter is about 2.3 times bigger. And admittedly, this is just kind of some back-of-the-envelope math here, but I took the 550 foot-pounds of energy that 357 Magnum / this gyrojet generates and multiplied that by 2.3. And this is probably about as hard as something that we could make with the same technology would hit. However, they're in the far future, so I just multiplied this number by 2, which comes out to about 2,500 foot-pounds of energy. This is really similar to both the 7.62 NATO round and 4570 government. I'm going to compare it more to 4570 government rather than 7.62 because it's a larger round and by all accounts is relatively slow. At least for what you would expect a rocket to travel at. So, based on my math, the bolter hits about as hard as a 4570 round, plus, you know, it also explodes and has a bit more armor-penetrating capabilities. Now, I don't want to get demonetized, so I'm not going to show any of this, but there are videos of 4570 government hitting random targets, you know, like watermelons, human head analogs. So you can see what this sort of thing does. And I think that that is really similar to what we see happening in the Space Marine 2 trailer. Now, you might be thinking that that's not powerful enough to be a bolter round. However, keep in mind, in this trailer, it's pretty much just enough to blow off these limbs of lightly armored targets and mildly annoy this larger target enough to distract it. Not exactly something a round that could take down a tank would be able to do, but feasibly something that a round like 4570 could do. Now, an additional side note about the bolter. According to this diagram, which is from official 40k stuff, the fuel that's used to propel the round is also the fuel that's used to explode the round when it hits a target. Which means that if this round is traveling for long enough, it'll just not explode. And it will also explode more phenomenally the closer you are to a target. So it gets less lethal the further you shoot it. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are on that. This is just math that I've been doing because I do this sort of math for no reason whatsoever.